This video is rated G for gas. This is the OXI Instruments 1. It's a sequencer, it's a MIDI controller, it's a generative music maker. What it isn't though is easy to review, because every single time I've tried to make this video, the people over there at OXI put out yet another firmware update with a massive new feature, and I have to start all over from scratch. So this time I decided that instead of trying to do some kind of tutorial or technical overview on this, I'm just going to do what I do best and take a look at this from beyond the spec sheet, from a regular user's point of view, and tell you why I think that the OXI 1 is probably one of the most versatile and inspiring pieces of music technology to come out in recent memory. Full disclosure, I bought the OXI 1 directly from OXI Instruments at a discount, but they're not paying me for this video, nor do they have any say whatsoever in its contents or in my opinions. If you're already subscribed, huge welcome back, my friends. If this is your first time here, hi, welcome to the Midlight Synthesist. Let's get started. So I've had the OXI 1 for a little less than a year now, and it's been in pretty much every other video that I've launched in the last 6 months. Although there are many substantial reasons why it's become a staple on my channel, and I'll be getting into them later on in this video, please forgive me if I start out with probably the most superficial reason of all. This thing is beautiful. It's one of those pieces of equipment that you always find an excuse to use in a setup just because it's so nice to have in front of you. I'm a firm believer that what an instrument looks like and what it actually feels like under your hands is a huge part of what makes it inspiring, and I'm sure that other OXI 1 users are going to have my back here down in the comments when I say that every single time that I've turned this thing on, I know I'm going to have a great time. The fully colored backlit buttons are sturdy and thick and offer a nice resistance to them. I've been banging on them mercilessly with no signs of wear and tear so far. The sensitivity of the buttons is something to get used to though, as they offer different functions depending on whether you do a short press, a long press, or a double tap. And I have screwed up a few triggers here and there when I don't press down hard enough or fast enough. The screen is bright and crisp, and the metal casing is designed to look more like a MacBook Pro than a MIDI controller. It screams high-end from wherever you look at it, and I was extremely surprised when I learned that OXI Instruments isn't a billion-dollar multinational company, but a small team based in Spain. Joder, tío, que está quedado de puta madre. Especially now, in the wake of more recent infamously badly built hardware releases, I have a renewed appreciation for something manufactured with this level of care, quality, and attention to detail. Even small details like it being sent with its own custom carrying case and the cables being engraved are all little flourishes that make you feel like you bought into this exclusive members club. In short, it's built like a tank, if that tank was designed by a Lamborghini.
Help me help you.
There are very few companies out there that are lucky enough to form a sort of synergy between the developers of the device and the user community. One of the most notable examples I can think of is Synthstrom, and how they have been constantly working together over the years with their users to make the Deluge into the best thing it can be. OXI Instruments is now firmly added to my list of companies where there's this philosophy of genuinely listening and interacting with your community, where the sole aim seems to be to make their device into the tool that their users need it to be. The developers are constantly taking in user requests while trying to one-up themselves, always trying to make the one faster, better, more intuitive. The end result is that as of January 2024, the One is a device that most times, when you wish you could do something on it, it most likely can. The last firmware update is a true testament to this philosophy, where it not only became more powerful, but it's way easier to use as well, thanks to a few seemingly minor, yet extremely useful tweaks. Just to name a few examples, now you can copy and paste individual steps by just selecting them and pasting them on, with the ability to transpose and reposition the copied sequence however you like, allowing you to experiment and try different positions with ease. The screen somehow manages to pack in more information than it did before, and now even has little labels to let you know what your knobs are doing at any given moment. And by far, my favorite new quality of life feature are the MIDI mapping presets. With any MIDI controller, you usually have to individually route MIDI CC messaging and controls for external synths yourself, which can be extremely tedious. Well, the great minds at OXI figured, why not do it for you? Now, at the click of a button, you get a list of popular instruments that already have their CCs assigned and learned. Take for example my hologram microcosm or my Subsequent 37. If I just select them from the list, I can select modulation to pre-assigned destinations, like filter cutoff on the Moog or dry and wet mix on the microcosm. That might be one of my favorite things on a sequencer yet, and I'm told that the list will keep on growing.
First bassoon, tenor, trombone, what? With the tenors.
A patient composer.
Identical? Of course, the instrument's doubling the voices.
After using the OXI for several months, I've come to regard it as more of a sort of bandmate than just a sequencer. The OXI One has several ways to help you come up with new musical themes without being overly intrusive or overbearing. And by that I mean, it's not going to write a song for you, nor does it want to trample over your creativity with its own algorithms. With artificial intelligence being all the rage now, I know there's probably a program out there already that can write you a smooth jazz in G minor if you ask it nicely, but that's not what making music is about. For me. What I really like about the One's generative features is that it has a few different ways to suggest ideas to you, but it only goes so far or as wild as you want it to. And once you find something that you like, it's easy to grab it and flesh it out to make it become your idea. For example, you could come up with a melody by just using the randomization feature on the mono track. If that's not working for you, you can always grab a sequencer and turn it into stochastic mode, and it will start to generate different rhythms and melodies according to a certain set of parameters of your choosing. And as soon as you find something you like, you can freeze that loop. And if you're still not feeling it, you can always try to cook something up with the matricial mode, where it's basically everything goes. Another awesome tool on the One is the chord mode sequencer. When in the chord sequencer, the piano roll offers you chords instead of just notes. You can choose from a variety of chords like diminish, sus, or a bunch that I don't even know the names of, and whether you want different voicings or inversions, or how you want to spread out the notes on these chords. And after you select that chord, you can just prop it down in the sequence and keep on going. You can even set it so it strums the chord, which is one of my favorite features on the Keystep 37. I can't tell you how many times I found a voicing or a chord in here that completely changed my song into something way more interesting. Now, let's say you found a chord progression that you like, but you're struggling with the bass line. You can set the scale of your sequencer to harmonize or follow the chord progression, and that way you can focus just on the groove and rhythm without worrying too much about staying in key, because it'll do that for you. The One always feels like it wants to give you choices, and I've come to look at it as kind of like when you're brainstorming with other people in a band. They'll throw you a bunch of ideas, and if you're paying close enough attention, you might just be lucky enough to catch a good one to further develop into an amazing song. It might not come as a surprise, but I own a ton of sequencers and groove boxes with sequencing capabilities. Save for the Deluge and the MPC-X, most have the bottleneck of running out of tracks or external connections pretty quickly. The One offers you MIDI in and out, 8 individual CV and gate options, as well as clock in and out ports. And if you just want to jam on your iPad, well, no need to fret, this thing has Bluetooth. So that's all good and well as far as connectivity goes, but when I first looked at the OXI, I thought, okay, 4 tracks, that's pretty constraining. Well, it turns out I was sorely mistaken. You see, you have 4 main sequencer pages, right? But each one of those sequencers has different modes, one of them being multi-mode. And in this mode, each one of the horizontal lines becomes its own independent sequencer track, kind of like 8 Octatrack tracks, one on top of each other. So in effect, you could have a total of 32 independent sequencers running at the same time. But back up a bit, MIDI only has 16 channels. How would you manage 32 tracks with independent MIDI channels? Well, turns out they figured that out as well, and you can buy a MIDI splitter, so you can have 3 different subsets of 16 different MIDI channels, A, B, and C. Even though the OXI One isn't tiny, it's still small enough to be portable and fit comfortably in pretty much any backpack. The fact that it has a built-in battery and Bluetooth connectivity makes it a great choice for music making on the go alongside a tablet or a laptop loaded up with some choice plugins. I have to give a shout out to Circo for turning me on to being able to connect the One wirelessly to my MacBook on the flight home from Superbooth. Being an 18-hour trip, that was a real lifesaver, man. Thanks a lot. The battery life on the One is pretty decent, and as far as Bluetooth MIDI lag, you'll only notice it if you try to punch something in live, but when you're sequencing everything, you can barely tell. What's really great about having that option is that I'll regularly be carrying the One around with me, and I'll noodle with it with placeholder plugins in my DAW, so that later, when I get back home to the studio, I can hook it up to my hardware synths and find the actual sounds that I'll use on my finished jam or my track, much like I do with my Deluge. If I had to summarize the One in one word, it would be options. The One offers options in creativity, in connectivity, in workflow. I never feel held back by it or that I have to adapt or fight its mechanics to get where I want to go, as can sometimes happen with some of my favorite hardwares like Octatrack or the original OP1. It's a device that has evolved and continues to evolve with a clear focus on the idea that it is meant to serve the musician and serve well. Now, like any piece of equipment this fully featured, it does have a learning curve and you will have to read the manual a few times to fully understand all that it's capable of. But I honestly feel that it's one of the best investments, both in time and money, that I've made in quite a long time. If you're at all interested in getting an OXI One for yourself and you'd like to support the channel at the same time, you can buy it directly from OXI Instruments with a 5% discount using my link down below. I get a small commission for each purpose, so it's literally a win-win situation. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful or at least entertaining. Have a great week. See you next time.